everyone. Kathleen kicked it off for us. St. Patrick's Day. For those that celebrated, congratulations or happy anniversary or just happy day. I'm going to put it that way. I can't go wrong if I say it like that. We are so glad to see everyone. Let me play with my screen a little bit. I see we have some elected officials in the audience, and so we are so glad to see you. I'm going to get to you in a few minutes, but welcome, welcome, welcome. We have an exciting panel. I'm going to turn this fan off, so I hope it's not too loud. I'm going to turn it off in a few minutes, but I'm sure some of y'all can relate to this right now. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, especially with entrepreneurs. This wellness and wealth and balance. You've heard us talk a lot about balance this time around, and so balance is crucial, especially during this pandemic and all that's occurring. And so we want to make sure that you have balance. And so that's why we thought it was very important to have this. And we're so glad to have our guests. I'm not going to introduce them. That's not my job. I'm going to stick to my job. What I want to remind you of is please make sure that you check your emails. If you're not a member, we look forward to you becoming a member. If you are a member, we ask that you check your emails, go to your spam. That's going to be crucial because a lot of them go to the spam. All right. Be seen, be heard, be involved, get to know NAWBO event is coming up. Carlita will talk a little bit about that. But we're glad to see everybody. Right now, I'm going to go around this and ask you to raise your hand if I call this particular category and you fit the bill. So we want to recognize our service members at this time. Any service members? Yes, Kathleen, thank you for all that you've done and what you continue to do. We love you and we are grateful for you. We want to recognize our public sectors at this time, officials, and Renetta is in the group. Did I say that right? Because I will mess up somebody's name just because folks mess up mine.
Yep, Renetta. Yep, you got it.
Oh, good job. Good to see you. Glad you could make it. Congratulations on your win and all that you're doing. I've never met you, but we know a lot of the same people. And so
oh, great.
You're doing a phenomenal job. There's my word. You'll hear it more than one time, I can guarantee. You're doing a phenomenal job, and we are super proud of you. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Can you tell what position you have?
Sure. I'm a representative in the North Carolina House of Representatives for District 29, which is southwestern Durham County here in the Triangle.
Wonderful. Thank you. We appreciate that. We want to recognize our corporate partners. Holly, there you go. Bank of America, UPS, Office Depot, our platinum level, Lemons Law Group, Karina is on, Duke Energy is our gold level, Executive Office Suites, Triangle Real Estate Group is our silver level. We have Holly, and I don't know if Catherine is on. And then our next level is Body Lace, Keller Williams Commercial, Roper Group, I don't think I see Jess, and North Carolina Education Lottery with Annette Taylor. I read it backwards, but I think you got it. Thank you and welcome everybody. Next, recognition of our community partners. Do we have any on? So our community partners is Wake Tech, Women's Business Center, SBA, SCORE, and I think I covered them all. Emily, did I leave anybody out? That's it. Okay, good job. I'm getting better at this. Recognition of our members. If you are a member, can you wave your hand? Because we got a lot of great members that's doing phenomenal things in the organization. Wonderful. Now let's recognize our guests. If you are a guest, please wave your hand because we are so grateful to have you. Yes, Dr. Dennis, I'm gonna say Dr. Matt, Dr. Marino, because y'all are all doctors to me in one way or the other with your coaching and all that you do. So we're glad to have you. Did I miss any other guests? Shauna, I looked at it. Okay, good to have you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. At this time, I am going to turn it over to our Vice President-elect, Miss Emily Parks. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Carnella. And it's so good to see so many friendly faces, familiar faces, as well as some new folks in the crowd. And I'm really excited about today's program. We would like to highlight so that both they can share announcements, but also in case you have any questions for them and need any assistance, our Board of Directors members. And as I say your name, please feel free to speak up with your announcement or simply wave your hand so that people know where you are. I am Emily Parks, the President-elect for the NAWBO Greater Raleigh chapter, and Carnella, who was just speaking, is the President of our NAWBO Greater Raleigh chapter. And although she is not here today, Olala Jinga is our immediate past president. Then our treasurer is Jess McLam, who was unable to join us today. And then we also have Shauna Williams, who is our secretary. And then, let's see, Holly is here. She is our Director of Corporate Partners, Holly Van Apeldoorn. Then our ambassador, which you will be hearing from over the next couple of weeks via email about our upcoming Young Entrepreneurs Pitch event. Our ambassador is Annette Taylor. And then our public policy director is Karina Lemons. Karina, would you like to share a few announcements?
Absolutely. So NAWBO HQ has an annual event called Advocacy Days, and it's an opportunity for us to interact with our congressional officials. So this year it's June the 7th and June the 8th. It begins at noon on June the 7th. The registration fee is a nominal $45. And then on the 4th of June, you'll have the option of having individual meetings with your local officials. I participated in this last year and it was great. It was really, really informative. One, you register, or even prior to registering, you can go to the website and look at the schedule and which topics will be covered during which time slots. This has traditionally been done in DC, but since the pandemic, we've been doing it virtual. And it's so important for us to be engaged in the policy that's being made in regards to small businesses. And some of us don't always, all of our businesses are not small, you know, but it's so important for us to be engaged in that conversation and be in the know. And the advocacy days that NAWBO puts together is that opportunity for us. So important. So take the time to go to NAWBO.org, go to events, or even just Google, do a search for NAWBO Advocacy Days, and you'll see the registration link. Go ahead and take care of that today.
Thank you very much, Karina. I'm really looking forward to this year's Advocacy Days. There's a lot going on and it should be a great discussion with everybody. Next, within our board of directors, we have our Director of Professional Development, which is Janice Cutler. Within Janice's committee, we have both Wendy Gates Corbett, who oversees our peer groups program, and we also have Sarah Forney, who oversees our community partners programs and make sure that to answer any questions you might have about those partnerships. So please feel free to reach out to those volunteers who are eager to help answer questions and help you get engaged with those folks. And then our membership director is Carletha Ward. Carletha, would you like to share a few words?
Yes, thank you so much. And again, welcome everyone. We are just excited. We are in the midst of our spring membership drive for the months of March and April. And we just are looking for new members. We just, we would certainly appreciate any help that anybody can give us. If any of your peers or colleagues are business people, business women, and or are aspiring business women, we would certainly love to have the opportunity to speak with them about just the benefits of being connected with NAWBO. We also have an opportunity for men, male business owners, but of course their participation would be limited, but we call them NAWBROs. So there's opportunity there as well. And specifically, we will be having a Get to Know NAWBO event on April the 8th. That's on a Thursday, the evening of April the 8th at 6 o'clock. It's a virtual situation. So please register for that. We'd love to have you attend. Just as a matter of information, all of the new members during this spring membership drive, there's a $45 discount. It's a great time to join, $45 discount on the one-time initiation fee. So we're excited about NAWBO. We're excited about, just so many of the plans and programs and what we've got in store for the rest of this year and forward. Please join us. We'd love to have you. I'm the membership director, would love to speak with you about the benefits of being a NAWBO member. Thank you. And and I do want to say that the Get to Know NAWBO event on April the 8th is in collaboration with professional development. So the two groups, the professional development and membership committees, work together in putting that forth.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Carlitha. And that brings us to programs. Right now, our president, Carnella, is overseeing our upcoming programs. And Carnella, would you like to share a little bit about some of our upcoming workshops, luncheons, and whatnot?
Yes, we are actually doing a lot of wonderful things in the community and as a whole to keep business owners, women, and we have NAWBROs, I don't see any on today, but to keep you updated with the different things that are occurring. And one event that we're really excited about is our Young Entrepreneurs event the kickoff is next week. So if you know any young entrepreneurs between the ages of 16 through 22, we ask you to share the flyer that we have. You can contact any of us. It'll be on our page, our social media page, as well as we will have it out on our website soon. But it's a great opportunity for them to win a prize. And I'm just going to quickly go through it just so that you know. So it's high school and college students learn about entrepreneurship, develop an actionable plan to grow your business, engage with professional and business owners, be coached by some of our wonderful members, and then strengthen your presentation skills in a Shark Tank type manner, and participate in mentoring sessions. And so we are really excited. We have started disseminating this information out in the community, and we're looking forward to the big day next week as we kick off March the 25th from 5 to 6. So if you know any young entrepreneurs, even if they have a concept, welcome them here because it'll be a great experience for them. And then their final pitch day is May the 6th, and they'll have a prep event in between, which will be April the 15th. So that's about that. Then we have our connections and conversation. Wendy, can I put you on the spot to share a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, Connections and Conversations is the new program we've started. I think it's the second Wednesday of the month. It's 9 to 9:30 or 9 to 9:45 in the morning. It's just a time for us to come together and chat, get our connections and our need to socialize, get that need filled, and get to meet other wonderful women and NAWBROs.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so those are just a few of the things that we have going on. We also planning in April for a town hall meeting. We will have a representative from Congress or Senate. We have 2 people, and so we're trying to narrow it down with them that will be coming to talk about the state of the business and what we're doing and how we can make improvements and see what is happening in Congress. And so look for the email for that. Essentially, had a chance to answer that. We are looking for feedback over the last 2 years. We do it every 2 years so that we can make this the best programs for you. And as the organization continues to grow, I'm not going to belabor it. We will send a newsletter will be coming out this month. And so just pay attention, check your emails. But we got a wonderful panel and I don't want to hold up anything. So I'm going to hand it back over to Emily Parks at this time.
And with those wonderful announcements, I want to transition to today's powerful panel and all of the wonderful insights they're going to share with us. Let's kick things off by introducing our moderator. Carletha Ward is your partner on your journey to breakthrough living. After a career as an HR professional in one of the country's top 10 financial services institutions, Carletha uses her career experience, her coaching expertise, and her work in Christian ministry to support women who are ready to shift into living with greater confidence and authenticity in their relationships, careers, and in their faith. She envisions women from all backgrounds and life experiences living more intentionally and better aligned with their sense of purpose. Carletha is inspired by women who choose fulfillment over what's easy or expected. As a master your mindset coach, her mantra is shift your thinking, change your life. Ooh, that is powerful. Carletha is the founder of Legacy Life Coaching and Consulting LLC. She holds degrees in business, ministry, and biblical counseling, along with several coaching certifications. She's a member of ICF, serves on the boards of NAWBO Greater Raleigh, where she's Director of Membership, and the Wilson Chamber of Commerce, and is featured in the No Raleigh 2020 book. She is the author of Postcards from My Walk with God and Lies You Accept That Keep You Stuck and the Truth to Set You Free, as well as other writings. Please help me welcome Carletha Ward.
Thank you, Emily, so much for that introduction. I appreciate that. And I just want to say we have really been anticipating today's event, and we know that we're going to have some engaging conversation. Our panelists are going to share with us from their respective areas of expertise, and then they're going to help us get greater insight into how to manage our personal and our business lives as it relates to the topic of conversation. Ooh, heard siren. We're going to begin with a series of discussion points that I'm going to facilitate, and then we'll open it up for questions from those of you on the call. So please feel free to put your questions as we're going along, put your questions or your comments in the chat box, and then we will certainly be monitoring that as well. So let me introduce each of our experts and we'll move right into that discussion. Okay, first we have Dr. Nora Dennis. Dr. Dennis is the lead behavioral health medical director of Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Originally from Chapel Hill, Dr. Nora Dennis is a board certified psychiatrist and addiction medicine specialist who completed her residency at Duke University. Dr. Dennis has worked as a staff psychiatrist at the Durham VA Medical Center, where she was medical director of the Psychiatry Emergency Care Clinic and worked extensively in the outpatient clinic with veterans with treatment-resistant psychotic disorders. She was concurrently an assistant professor at Duke University School of Medicine and a faculty attending for the Duke Brain Stimulation Program. More recently, she has served as the chief medical director at Monarch, one of North Carolina's largest providers of behavioral health services for the Medicaid and uninsured populations. She is passionate about access to high-quality mental health care for all. Dr. Dennis and her husband, Paul, have 3 children. In her free time, which it doesn't sound like she has much of that, in her free time, she enjoys ambitious gardening projects, walking her dog, and reading aloud to her kids. Our second panelist is Heather Moreno. And by the way, Heather has posted in the chat that she is one of our NAWBO sisters from the California Central Coast. So welcome, NAWBO sister. Heather Moreno is hired by smart women who struggle to make health and well-being a priority. As a business owner, licensed CPA, and mayor of Atascadero, California. She personally understands the challenges of fitting health priorities into a busy schedule. With a diverse background in exercise physiology, coaching, and theology, Heather has helped thousands of women understand what was keeping them stuck so they could finally stop spinning their wheels and reach their health and weight loss goals. Okay, and our third panelist, Tracy Mack McNeil, known as the Life Solutionist, blends her 29 years of experience with federal, state, and local governments, the private sector, educational and nonprofit organizations, and being an ordained elder teacher since 1994 into her expertise as a certified life coach and consultant. A 16-year life coach, which began in Okinawa, Japan in 2004, Tracy Mack is the owner and senior fellow of Tracy Mack Solutions for Life Institute Coaching and Consulting, CEO of Peace Place LLC, and Tracy Mack Publishing. She attended Winston-Salem State University and later earned her degree in behavioral science from Western International University, graduating magna cum laude. She is a graduate of Coach Training Alliance and a certified master life strategist with Kairos Institute of Personal Discovery. She's also a certified conflict resolution trainer of MTI Eckerd College, is duly certified in adult and youth mental health first aid, and independent national instructor. So I think we will all agree that our panelists are steeped in expertise and are certainly well chosen to help give us guidance on these topics that we have for today. So welcome, ladies. We really appreciate your being here with us, and we're just excited about this discussion that we're going to have. So let's just get right into it. The first question that I'd like to kind of pose is, reports are showing, because we're all kind of business owners or aspiring business owners or related in that area, reports are showing entrepreneurs are the most passionate and driven people, but they can also be the most obsessive and out of balance. And that's according to an article, Understanding Entrepreneurial Burnout and How to Deal with It. So how can we recognize when our situations have become obsessive and are out of balance? And how can we turn that behavior around? Either of you that would like to go with that question?
I'm happy to start out addressing it, and I'm sure others have insights as well.
Okay.
So I think that when behaviors become obsessive and things are out of balance, there's always going to be impacts on other areas of one's life. And so I think that we're all really grounded in our relationships and in our connections and our families and all of the things that we need to take care of. And when we can kind of observe those relationships starting to struggle, then it can be like a sign that something's going on here. So I know for me, it's like if my plants are dying, I'm like, oh, they're actually they're the canary in the coal mine. It's like, if I'm not taking care of my plants, then there are other things that I'm not taking care of as well. So I'll pause and let others speak.
Okay. Would either of you, the other two, like to make a comment or weigh in on that?
I'm happy to.
Okay.
I think when we talk about out of balance, it's kind of the epitome of all or nothing. So like in my world, for example, you might see somebody set, a New Year's resolution to lose weight, and then they want to go do all of the things. They're going to go to the gym 5-6 days a week. They're going to no more white flour, no more white sugar. And they're on this complete, health kick, and it lasts a few days. It's unsustainable. And that's one reason why people aren't successful long-term. And I think right now we can feel so out of control that people are worriedly trying to control all of the things that they can in order to compensate. And then when you add to that your financial well-being is hooked into your entrepreneurial success, it creates a real, pardon me, but shitstorm of stress. And so in my world, this is what leads people to, skipping meals, to comforting themselves with food, to not getting the sleep that they need. And it brings them further out of balance. So I think it's recognizing that. I guess you are your own canary in the coal mine. I love thinking of the garden because that's an external. And I do have a really great resource around this if you want to take a look at some of the things that you can do when life gets stressful to becoming so out of balance. So anyone can just send me an email, just like put the word balance in the subject line and I'll send it off to you.
Okay. And we will have your email address put in the chat so that people can pick up on that if they want to reach out to you. But thank you for offering that resource. I do absolutely love the analogy of the canary in the coal mine, and I certainly love the thought that Dr. Dennis laid out, that once you're, if you're not taking care of your plants, then other areas of your life are kind of out of control or out of balance. So those are signals that we have. That we can look around and see how are things going in our lives, what's happening, what's going lacking, and they can certainly be early indicators of other areas of our lives that may be under duress as well. Thank you. So let me just move to my next question of, during this pandemic, perhaps we're struggling to separate ourselves from business and working from home. So everybody's working from home, or many people are working from home. How do we separate? We're struggling with separating business from, from that working at home experience. If any of the panelists, can you provide any creative ideas to help us accomplish being able to separate home life from business when we're working at home? How do we draw that line and make sure that we're not allowing business to too much impede in our home life?
I would love to chime in because I have been guilty.
Absolutely.
I have been guilty for years and years. But one thing we have to decide when we're working in our home space is, are we working from home or at home? Because we, as most of the people here are women, or should I say all of us here are women, we have a tendency to, if we're doing something over here, we can fold some laundry, or we can start dinner, or we can do those things. So that's working when we start working at home. And then the other thing is, have a dedicated workspace. Don't work from your bed. If you wouldn't, whoever you wouldn't allow in your physical bed, don't let them in your virtual bed. Point blank, period. It can get pretty raunchy in there with a lot of people. And then one thing I found out is I'm a stickler for time. So I began to clock in and clock out, especially when you own the business, you don't clock in and out. But I'm like, now this is my baby, but I'm wrong. There are some things that I will not allow to overwhelm me. So I clock in and clock out, even for lunch and for breaks. Years ago, I'm 52. So I don't know if y'all remember back in the day, people could take smoke breaks. So I will even take quote unquote smoke breaks. And the last thing I want to say is, in order to have that time for yourself as a business owner, entrepreneur, leader in any capacity, what you have to do is that commute time that you used to get pre-COVID, use that. That's still your work time. If you used to have to leave the house 30 minutes or an hour before to commute to your workspace, do it when you're even at home. By having that time to prepare on the front end of going to work, and even when you're going home from work, you had some time to decompress. So if you're working from home, if you have a home office or whatever, when you open that door to come out of that room, don't just close your laptop from the Zoom or the WebEx or whatever. Take some time to decompress as if you were commuting. So I submit that to you and I hope it helps.
Oh, it does. That's fabulous. Those are some really great points. And I think it resonated with a lot of the folks who are on the call as well. Heather or Dr. Dennis, did either of you want to contribute to that as well?
I'm happy to. I love what Tracy Mack said, absolutely. And I think another thing is to really discover what brings you joy, what jazzes you, because if you're someone who gets your energy from other people, it's been a little more challenging for you during this time than it has your introverted sister.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to figure out what kind of sparks joy for you. And so separating yourself from your business, for someone, it might be going for a 5-mile hike. For someone else, it's watching a comedy on Netflix. One of my business owner clients rediscovered her passion for making jewelry. So now she's got to sell some of it to people because she's got a bunch of it. But really, what do you love doing that you could rediscover and spend a little bit of time and energy in? And one last note I really want to make, like as we're getting ready to come on the other side of this quarantine shelter at home period that we've been in, to really be, I mean, this is something I'm thinking of because I know I'm at risk for doing this, is filling up my schedule again and becoming too busy again. And how do I be really intentional? How do we all be really intentional about what we allow back onto our calendars so that we don't have, you know, they say that the good is the downfall of the great. So how do we not do so many good things that we're running ourselves ragged again, but really create a sustainable and enjoyable lifestyle moving forward?
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. All of those are just, I think they resonate so powerfully with each one of us because these are things that we can all kind of relate to. Tracy, you at the very beginning, you said, I want to respond to that because I've been guilty of this. And I think that we all are, particularly, you know, now we're home, we're working from home, we've got our home life, we've got many people have children who are learning from home, or at least have been. I think now that's beginning to reverse a little bit, and kids are going back into the classroom. But all of that, you got all those dynamics that are going on. How do you kind of draw those lines to say, wait a minute, I've got to cull out some time that's work time, I got to cull out my family time. So thank you all so much for those responses. I think those were powerful examples or powerful guidance that you've given us. Okay, so as we are interacting with our colleagues and we sense that they may be dealing with being overly stressed or overly anxious or even depressed, I'd like to ask Dr. Dennis specifically, and certainly the others can chime in, to address what would be some appropriate ways to broach this subject with our colleagues or you know, friends, neighbors, whatever, who seem to be dealing with being overly stressed or anxious or even depressed.
Sure. So my first thought is that there really does have to be a degree of trust in the existing relationship before talking with somebody about such a vulnerable topic as mental health. So part of the question is, what is the strength of that existing relationship, but also how to build a safe organizational culture that allows people to express fluctuations in mental health that are a natural part of being human. And I think that when you kind of zero in on that, it really has so much to do with breaking down stigma. And part of that is psychoeducation. So really having solid learning within communities about common behavioral health disorders so that folks understand when that is happening to them, and then also folks are able to recognize for others when it might be happening to a friend or to a colleague, and really building a culture where people recognize and understand these disorders and seek care appropriately. If you do have that relationship with someone and they're not their usual self, I think it's really important to make that observation with as much compassion as possible and ask after their well-being in a low pressure way. So rather than kind of someone feeling cornered and sort of called out, I think it's better to sort of give them space to say, you know, to open up or not open up, because for some people that is very private. So it might look something like saying, you know, I noticed you've seemed anxious and different from your usual self, and I just want you to know that I'm here for you if you want to talk about it. And then if they don't, then, you know, I think it's important to allow that space. And if they do, then really being available to listen in a non-judging way and refrain from giving suggestions. Because I think for a lot of folks, our immediate thought of like how we're going to help is that we're going to give suggestions and we're going to give a million ideas for what that person can do. But that can actually feel really, really invalidating for people when they sort of get the onslaught of suggestions versus just the compassion.
Wow. Yes, absolutely. I definitely, certainly that's great advice, but I do think that I particularly pick up on the non-judgmental part, because I think many times that's where the breakdown can come, where people feel like they're being judged, or to borrow the term that you use, feel cornered, and that we're pointing something negative behavior out in them. So if have to be very careful in how we toe the line in that regard. Tracy, I saw both you and Heather shaking your heads. So did you guys have something that you would like to add to that? Okay. Yeah, but I mean, I certainly think we all kind of understand how sensitive a thing that can be, how we definitely need to tread lightly and being respectful of another person's feelings, or being respectful of another person's place. You know, we see so much in the news now. I know everybody's seen the Oprah interviews with Harry and Meghan, and they're talking about mental illness and that kind of thing. And I think that's kind of coming more and more to the forefront, and we're hopefully beginning to get an understanding of the nature of how to understand that, and to quote unquote appreciate the position that a person might be in, and the delicacy around which we need to manage that if we feel like we need to have a conversation with someone. Okay, so my next question is, so, you know, kind of related to that, how can we deal with individuals who might be in a fight or flight mode, you know, when they're tired and overwhelmed, they're fearful of the unknown, and you know, certainly over the course of 2020, and now even in the early parts of 2021, we don't know where this pandemic is going. We don't know how much longer we're going to be in these circumstances of having to be, you know, acutely cautious. How can we deal with, you know, when we're tired and we're overwhelmed, we're anxious, we don't know what's going to happen, we just feel like we're coming apart? What are some ways that we ourselves can kind of bring it down? Let's pull it down. Let's, you know, get some sense of calm so that we can manage rationally and objectively through some of the strains of the times that we're in right now.
First of all, it's natural. Fight or flight, it feels real to the individual. And because it's just but in actuality, it's just a thought of the possibility of negative outcomes. And a lot of times the things we worry about the most never happen.
Yeah.
And so if we can, number one, stay present. Sometimes if I get all discombobulated or start getting fearful about certain things, I write down what's really going on, what's happening now. And it brings me back into a realm of, yeah, that's possible. And even sometimes if I think of the worst case scenario, write it down, and I start creating solutions for what those solutions for what could potentially happen. But I think if we get to the point and realize what is really happening now, because sometimes we give our fear our ideas, and it's like fear wasn't even trying to take us there. Here we go. You know, and so, but I think if we make our what ifs more positive and powerful, what if, and then make that positive instead of going straight to the negative, I think that will serve us well and better, and not having the feelings of overwhelm when they're not really there. Yes, the possibility is there, but like I said, most of the things we worry about, to the extent we worry about them, never really happen. So be present.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that insight. You know, even as we're having this, talking about that, what comes to my mind is this book by Mel Robbins called The 5-Second Rule. And I think many of you have probably read that, but she offers some really good guidance on how to kind of bring it down, and really speak to the reality of the situation, as opposed to being driven by fear or uncertainty about what's going to happen in the future. Great, thank you so much. Let's talk just a little bit more about balance and depression. How do we recognize, and I think I'll go to Dr. Dennis again on this, how can we recognize some of the signs of depression, you know, even within ourselves, not so much other people, but within ourselves? How can we tell when we're, you know, when we're melancholy, when we're depressed? How do we know whether it's depression or if I'm just having a moment?
Sure, I'm happy to talk about that. So clinical depression is a persistent syndrome where there's low mood, there are changes in appetite and sleep, decreased energy, often folks have increases in anxiety or rumination, trouble concentrating, often changes in libido. There can be also what we call anhedonia, which is an overall decreased interest in things that were previously exciting. And I think that an important point is that these changes need to go on for 2 weeks, where someone is feeling badly more days than not, in order for the diagnosis of depression to be made. I also think it's really important to make the point that there are medical problems that can masquerade as depression, and also that the definition of depression kind of assumes that there's not a substance use disorder. So if somebody has these symptoms but is drinking really heavily or using cannabis heavily or something like that, then we really have to take that substance out of the picture before we can come to the conclusion that this is a true depression. People can manifest depression really differently as well. So when I was in the brain stimulation program at Duke, most of our patients had really severe treatment resistant depression, and it was really interesting how one person's depression, their predominant symptom might just be this like really crushing fatigue, low energy, and disinterest, and somebody else would be really, really anxious and just have uncontrollable worry, and another person would actually have irritability. So it doesn't look the same in different people, and because it tends to be a relapsing remitting disorder, meaning that it recurs over the lifespan, then a lot of times folks who, once they've had the diagnosis, they can kind of see, okay, well, what are the signs for me that I'm getting depressed? And they can start to really get to know their own symptom profile better. I really recommend that people go to their primary care doctor if they are feeling depressed, because again, you don't necessarily know, and unless if you've had depression before and you know what it looks like for you, of course but for one person it might look different than another, and you want to make sure that they check your thyroid, they see if you have anemia, they see if your B12 is low. Like there are just all of these other medical problems that are quite common that can actually look like depression. And it's so important to rule those things out, because otherwise you can end up, taking antidepressants and doing all this stuff and not getting better. And then it turns out that it was actually B12 deficiency the whole time. And unfortunately, that kind of thing does indeed happen. And then the other thing is that most of our primary care docs have a decent, solid base of experience with folks with depression. They will be able to do a PHQ-9 or other assessment tool and really get a good handle on how severe it is, and then also can help with referral to behavioral health provider if that's needed. And then the last thing I want to just say is that in severe depression, folks do have problems with thoughts of suicide. Often those are experiences intrusive, and to the person who's having those thoughts, the way that they think about it is they feel so badly that they really truly feel the world would be better off without them, or their family would be better off without them. And so, when things come to that level, that is certainly a crisis. We have several crisis resources. It really depends on by county. So there's a website called crisissolutionsnc.org, which I can put in the chat, that basically you put in your county and it can tell what the crisis resources are for that county. But it's been something that there have been more and more folks in the current pandemic who've been struggling with feelings of depression, or actually out and out have a diagnosis.
Thank you. Those are just amazing resources and amazing information that yeah, we are hearing. I don't know, as you're saying, that because of within this pandemic period, we've been seeing more incidences of it, more occurrences of depression, and perhaps it's because of people having to be at home or more confined or whatever, that it's manifesting itself more now than before. But I do think that it is something that all of us, those symptoms that you talked about, are something that we all need to be mindful of, because in the early stages of the pandemic, when people were asked to stay at home, you were asked to don't go anywhere. I think a lot of people were experiencing cabin fever, because we're just so we're so accustomed to being able to move about freely and to do what we want to do. But being able to recognize those signs of depression it's something I think that's really important for us to know, especially in the times in which where we're much more open to talking about it than we have been in the past. Either of the other ladies like to make any comments about that? Okay. So let's switch gears just a little bit. Given that we've spent so much time at home, often bored and binging, whether it's food or alcohol or whatever, many of us have put on those, what I call the old pandemic pounds, you know, that 5 pounds or that 10 pounds or whatever. So I'd like to ask Heather to share some tips on how we can tackle this situation from a mindset perspective.
Yeah, the quarantine 15 or the COVID-19.
Okay.
But anyway, I'll stop there. I do love that we're talking about this from a mind perspective, because I find that when people come to me, they want to get doing. Mm-hmm. Like, are all of you doers? Like, I'm a doer. So you want to change something, you're going to go do it. So people come to me, they want to lose weight and they want to start exercising, change what they eat, their sleep, their water, all of that. But mindset has to come before all of that in order to follow through consistently. And so the one thing you really want to consider, you want to start with, what are the thoughts that you have? And particularly when it comes to weight loss, what are the thoughts about your body and about your weight? What do you believe is possible for you to achieve based upon what's happened in your past? What do you believe about your ability to lose weight, your ability to follow through? What do you believe about your current circumstances? What do you believe about taking care of you versus taking care of other people? Yeah. And so as you consider these things, what I would recommend, the first step is really noticing what are the sabotaging thoughts that you have. And they often sound like all or nothing. Yeah. Perfectionism. They sound like absolutes. I always, I never. Discounting the positive or focusing on the negative. So sabotaging thoughts can also sound like excuses that we make to ourselves for why we're not doing something or why we're doing something else. And so awareness of your thoughts is really that first step. And then you can take those thoughts and transform the ones that aren't serving you. And this is where you take your power back. This is where you have authority over your thought patterns, even when you get emotional or you're having a bad day. And I'll tell you, like, the one principle of all or nothing, I had this one client who really grabbed onto that, and she was finally able to bust through, and she lost and kept off 20 pounds for the past 2 years. And so this work is really transformative. And I'll say one other thing is that you really want to clarify what it is that you want and what's important to you, because it answers the question, why bother with all of it? We could talk about losing weight, but why? Why does that really matter? What is it that you really want? Because when you have that clarity, you're going to be more naturally motivated to follow through.
Oh, wow. Tracy, I see.
Because Dr. Heather, where were you 5 years ago? Because
I was there.
Everything you said is so on point, because thank God, by the grace of God, I've lost 130 pounds. And everything you said is in perfect alignment. The only thing I would add to that wonderful list you gave was get an accountability partner who is qualified and sometimes even public accountability. I started, Dr. Heather's qualified, you know, I'm going to sing her praises because I like her list, but even public accountability. It took me putting my before on social media, telling people that I was going to lose weight. Mm-hmm. And I did not want people to see me in public and I hadn't done it. Uh-huh. So there was at one point it did become an unhealthy pressure, but I had to fix that thing with someone who was qualified to be an accountability partner and make that more of a healthy pressure, you know, a healthy competition in some cases. So thank you, Dr. Heather. I was, yeah.
Whenever she speaks, I'm all, you know, like resonating with that. So we're sort of kindred sisters here, but yeah.
Sounds like it.
Accountability and find someone who's accomplished what you want to accomplish and is available to support you when you need it. I think is very important. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, I love this question myself, because like I said, I believe that mindset is the foundation of everything. That's, you know, why my mantra is shift your thinking, change your life. And so being able to have that proper mindset before you endeavor anything, because the mindset, what you think about it, how you feel about yourself, you know, one of the things that I say is that mindset is your perspective of the world and how you fit in that world, how you respond to that world. And so, yeah, that applies to weight loss and really, from my perspective, every area of our lives. So thank you guys. I know that there's lots of note taking, particularly on that point, because yeah, I mean, we're at home, we're bored, we're accustomed to moving about freely, we're accustomed to being able to come and go as we please. We're not accustomed to having all of these restrictions. We've seen that manifested in the news where people have acted out because they're just frustrated with the restrictions that we have. And so one of the things that we do is we just go home and eat the bag of potato chips or drink the bottle of wine or, whatever it is that kind of makes people feel good and kind of come out of the frustrations of what they're having to, what they're faced with day to day. So thank you on both of those counts. I would like to ask another question for Heather. What are some ways that we can make health and well-being an ongoing priority, not just a New Year's resolution that we throw off after, the first 30 days. But, I know that this is something that you've worked with lots of clients on, and how can we keep that as a priority in our lives?
Well, can we talk about mindset again?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, one, you've got to be clear on what does wellness mean to you.
Mm-hmm.
So for some people, wellness or health is a value to them in and of itself. Like, it's really important for them to, they don't want to be on medication. They want to be hiking when they're 80, they want to be, doing all of these things, and health is a big part of their life. For others, health might be more of a means to an end, like it allows you to do the things that you need to do in your life. And so, you don't have to be this fitness health fanatic. It may just be that your health and well-being helps you do all of the other things, like be successful in your business. But be clear about what you want. I've kind of gotten sucked into in the last several years, and I'm kind of reevaluating this, because there's been this sort of thing of, don't talk about losing weight. Like, let's talk about health and wellness. Well, health and wellness are fabulous. But the thing is, what if you do want to lose weight? What if you want to look hot in a dress? Like, I have clients that say these things to me, but they feel like they have to have these more altruistic motives. Like, I'm going to be an example for my daughter, and, diabetes runs in my family, and so I want to prevent that. And that's fabulous. But if you also want your pants to fit, own it and be okay with that. We don't need to worry about if somebody's going to judge us because of that. Own what your true motivation is. And once you have that motivation, true compelling reasons, revisit that regularly. Sink into that. What does it feel like that if you are living that life? Bathe your mind in that regularly. And then my philosophy is always small steps, big results. Like I said, we all want to start doing things. And so we've got this, we're going to do all the things. Just start small, one step after another, and it all adds up. I have a client, we started together January of last year before the pandemic. She had 100 pounds to lose. She's lost 60 now. Wow. During the pandemic. And it's one step at a time. So, and Tracy was right. You find that accountability, you find that support. There are many ways to do that. And I think those are some ways to keep that front and center personally, and then find the support to help you do that.
Yeah, and thank you for that. Yeah, because I do think it is, health and well-being are things that we all want, we all desire for ourselves. But, the question comes down to motivation, and mindset certainly, again, is at the foundation of everything. And how do we keep our mindsets focused in terms of trying to accomplish what's the means to the end that we want to have, when there's so much just anxiety and melancholy and frustration, and you're dealing with the reality of every day that you wake up, wash your hands, stay 6 feet apart, wear your mask, you're getting all of these dictates that are so foreign to us as a culture. And so many times our desire is to want to be healthy and to have operate in a state of wellness, but we're dealing with all of those external influences that are compounding our ability to be able to maintain that and to hold on to that as a priority. So,
and
yeah.
I think piggybacking on what Heather was
Yeah.
saying, we have this culture where there's like so much dramatization of dramatic, quick changes, and like the reality of any kind of change, whether it's someone dealing with mood, whether it's someone dealing with wanting to change something about their body, whatever it is, it's slow, and it's habit, and it's self-care in the way that's not so enticing, which is like just discipline of showing up every day for yourself because you love yourself. And so it's like, I find it sometimes January to be like sort of a frustrating time, because I feel like there's just such this energy of like people wanting it to just, happen like that. And really what it looks like is, I'm going to walk for 45 minutes every day, or I'm going to get up early and do my, Pilates or whatever the case may be. And it's slow. And so if we have the understanding that it's slow and that it's not necessarily going to be exciting every step of the way, I think that can be helpful just to keeping the expectations realistic.
Yeah. Oh, great. That's awesome. Yeah. Understanding from the beginning that it's a process, that it's not, you don't just turn it's not like a light switch that you turn on and you're there. So yeah, process is a big part of that whole.
If I may add.
Yes, certainly.
Like counting your wins along the way, because the win, if the scale, like in weight loss, the scale is your only win, like, you're just tied to that number, and it can mess with your mind. But when you have wins, like, hey, a win can be keeping a commitment to yourself. I mean, as women, we, across the board have a very hard time doing that. We keep commitments to other people, but we're willing to let ourselves down in order to get whatever else done. And so it could be keeping that commitment to yourself, but celebrate those little wins along the way, regardless of what the scale is saying.
Yeah, that scale can really play with your mind, because you may be down 2 pounds today and up 1 tomorrow, and so you're always trying to play against what that outcome is going to be. Thank you all. Tracy, did you have anything to add to that? Okay, I just wanted to be sure. Okay, so now I would like to ask Tracy specifically, and then the others can chime in as well. I want to talk a little bit about how conflict can manifest in uncertain times. How might we effectively manage conflict that comes out of stress? I know we talked about stress and depression and anxiety earlier, but I would like to have you, based on your area of expertise, to speak about conflict and how it can potentially manifest, and how we might effectively manage conflict during this, the times of stress and the pandemic and everything.
Wow. Well, considering the pandemic and everything, whether it comes to race relations or even our political climate, we have been through hell and high water during this time, just keeping it real. And a lot of times people we're in close quarters. If you're not been quarantining with somebody you like, oh, I feel sorry for you. But then because of just slowing down, people's busyness keep them from having to be real with themselves. And a lot of times their inner frustrations are masked through being busy. So when people are having to be still and quiet, you got conflicts popping off. I mean, left and right. I mean, even the divorce rate during the pandemic has increased. Those arguments people have over political issues and things like that. But one thing, and what I do in workplace and family conflict resolution is we try to prevent people from going to court and to need mediation. But there are also things people can do to even prevent from coming to someone like me. And one of those things is to listen. To really listen. And I know that even Dr. Dennis and Dr. Moreno, they're doctors. I am not. So I'm honored to be on the panel with you ladies. But no, Carnella said you were a doctor. So I'm but But with that being said, we spend a lot of time listening. And I'm a coach, I don't have a podcast, all those type of things. But talking really doesn't matter if you aren't aware of your audience. So listening is the number one goal or number one thing when it comes to speaking. But if we're listening and then choosing to be non-judgmental as best as possible, and using our maturity to be unbiased. So even if there's conflict between two people and you have to get someone in that is mature enough to be unbiased, to hear both sides, and being prepared, if you're the one that's having the conflict, being prepared to be wrong or at least less right. That is very helpful when you're going in, because, and then know what you want. If a conflict has come to the place where you're argumentative by way of emails or verbal argument, what do you want to solve this? What will it take to solve this? And a lot of times when I deal with conflict resolution, especially in workplace, and I say, okay, what do you want out of this? Most people can't articulate it because some of them don't even know what started the conflict. Get to the root of the conflict and try to work from there. And then you want the outcome to be honest. What do you really want? And is that realistic? And I know when it comes to relationships, a lot of times we talk about reason, season, and lifetime. And we have to own that when it comes to our professional relationships as well. Everybody is not meant to be our friend, our colleague, our bestie at work, our wife, work, or husband, forever. So sometimes conflict can accelerate that reason, season, or if it's not a lifetime. And then lastly, I want to say that just remember to try to be amicable, because every relationship is not going to last forever. And if it has to end, because sometimes in conflict resolution, the result is it no longer being a relationship, at least choose to end it amicably as best as possible, because you never know who you may need at another time. You want to burn as few bridges as possible, but in those cases where you have to destroy the bridge, you don't want anybody to be injured for life. So I think that a lot of times in conflict, we have to realize that a lot of people are going through a lot of things right now. And sometimes we like to hold people accountable when we say, well, you don't know what I'm going through. Well, we don't. So therefore, you can't hold us accountable to behave accordingly. But when you do have those things where you're going through, have that relationship, as Dr. Dennis mentioned earlier, it's those relationships that allow us, Carlita, as you mentioned, to broach and have those conversations with people, to have them with people. But I say, when it comes to conflict, listen, know what you want. And the last thing I'd like to say is, we like to say in conflict where there you have a win-win situation. Well, if you're thinking about win-win, then there's a potential that somebody's going to lose. So what we like to say in the world of conflict resolution is both gain. Have a way that at the end result is both people gain something they can live with, hopefully as peaceably as possible. And I hope that helps.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Any others, either of the other of you want to chime in on that? I think that those were awesome tips for us to be able to take. Okay, so let me ask another question, and this one is, we can ask Dr. Dennis to share, but I think the other two can weigh in as well, and then we'll take another shift. For those on the call today that have young children, now that the children are returning to the classroom with safety requirements, can Dr. Dennis share with us some ways that we can help our children successfully transition back into the classroom experience after having learned from home after so many months? I know that this, everybody's talking about the kids going back into the classroom after being home for so long. There's certainly going to be some transition, which will weigh upon, the parents that might be on the call, and certainly how we're going to handle that transition and what impact that's going to be on our own ability to manage effectively during the day.
Absolutely. I think that, the number one thing that we as parents can always remember is that how we frame things for our kids is really so critical in how they see the situation. And so, I think that most of us are really mindful and thinking about the way that we are framing returning to school. For my own kids, I can say that they were home learning last academic year. And then we ended up switching schools because one of my children was really struggling with home learning. And it was really clear to me that because of his learning differences that we were going to have some possibly like pretty severe long-term consequences. So I went through having my kids go back to school in September, and there was just tremendous negativity from them because they felt as if something was being taken away from them. They liked being at home. There was a lot of comfort there, and their ability to be resilient in the face of new situations and new people. It almost seemed like there was like a diminishment of knowing how to interact with new people and knowing how to interact with new situations because their world had just gotten so small for such a long time. And so part of what I would like just tell them over and over and over is, I know this feels hard, but you're going to get used to this, and it's going to take time, but you will get used to it. I know you can do it. And it was like so hard, you know, because they're coming back and they're like, we hate this new school. It's horrible. The teachers aren't me. You know, they just had like anything you can think of as like a problem with it, especially my one who struggled with learning. He was just mad and complaining, and he hated it. And I, I'm like, just kept saying like, I made this choice, like, thinking of you, like you were at the center of my mind and my heart when I made this choice, and I know that you can handle this, and I know that it's going to get better. And he loves school now, but it legitimately took 5 months. It was horrendous. And it was so hard to be like, okay, I'm gonna I have my spiel, and like I know that he could do it, and and I'm gonna just have to be like this broken record where I like hear you, I hear what was hard, and like I validate that experience, that it was really difficult, and I know that you can do it. But man, they know how to push our buttons, I'll tell you that.
Thank you. Either Heather or Tracy Mack, do either of you have any comments about that? I know it's just going to be a fun experience for the majority of the kids that are on their way, that are on their way back to the classroom experience. It'll be real interesting to see how that plays out for the remainder of the school year. Thank you for sharing in that. I know that that's something that for the ones on the call who have children, I do know that that's something that they are very concerned about, how the kids are going to transition back after so many months. And that's definitely, anything that affects our children, of course, affects us. And then as business people, it will certainly have some impact in our mindset and our thought process during the day. So thank you. I want to get back a little bit to the discussion that we were having about the issue of weight and how stress impacts weight, how just stress and anxiety and frustration. What role does that play in terms of our ability to maintain our weight or to accomplish our weight goals? Heather, if you can speak to that for us.
Well, I'd love to hear Dr. Dennis speak more to the cortisol and that kind of thing. But what I will say is that when we're experiencing stress and we're letting our minds go to that place of like all the worry and doing that, the tendency is to then compensate with behaviors that are comforting. And for so many of us, that becomes food, alcohol, Facebook, Netflix, all these things. One thing that I like to, one thing that I do when I speak is I tell women, you deserve more than you settle for.
Oh, wow.
What I mean by that is we sometimes will come home at the end of a long day and think, oh, it's been a long, hard day. I deserve, a cookie, a glass of wine, or to watch some TV. And that's great, but it turns into basically a sleeve of Thin Mints or, binge watching Game of Thrones or a bottle of wine. And instead, it's really looking at, what do you actually deserve? Because you deserve far more than that. So how can you really take care of yourself? If you're treating yourself well, what does that genuinely look like? And so that takes a little bit of just assessing what is that? Is it connection with other people? Is it connection with yourself? Is it yoga? Is it tea? Is it calling a friend? Is it a spiritual practice? It's going to be different for each of us, but you deserve better and learn how to take care of yourself in ways that are truly beneficial to you.
Okay. Dr. Dennis, would you like to add to that?
Sure. So I guess I'll start with a disclaimer that I'm definitely not an endocrinologist. And so I can't say that I have like extremely deep knowledge about hormonal changes and sort of impacts on weight. What I can say is that a lot of people, when they are having struggles with stress and anxiety, one of the first things that's impacted is their sleep. And we know that when you don't get enough sleep, and when you're struggling and your sleep cycles are disrupted, that in turn actually changes the way that your body metabolizes glucose and changes the balance between these two competing hormones called leptin and ghrelin that basically sort of message into our body how we are going to manage the food and the calories and the glucose that comes into us. One promoting more like retention of those calories and sort of more disruption of blood sugar levels, and the other promoting a metabolic state, more like a breaking down of the nutritional resources that come in. And so I think that this is like one of these big things that we often don't think about in terms of managing our overall health and well-being. And it's just so interesting to me, because you'll find people who are generally pretty health conscious and drinking water and stuff, and then like really not sleeping very much. And I think that screens for many people have a lot to do with that, because of the addictive nature of a lot of the screens that we all use, and intentionally addictive nature. And I think anytime there's addiction at play, it's separating us from ourselves, because basically the definition of that is that when you are in a state of addiction, you are choosing your substance of choice over taking care of the things in your life that really need to be taken care of, whether that's like yourself and your health, your work, your family and relationships. And when I apply that lens and think about that, I think that we end up a lot of people get into this state where they're in a high stress situation or state. They're self-soothing with something that's really not nourishing for them, and kind of almost getting into an addiction place where they're like choosing that instead of choosing things that are actually nourishing for them. And unfortunately, I think in a lot of situations, abstinence is the only the like best way to kind of deal with it. So be that, and I mean that like abstinence from alcohol, abstinence from Facebook, abstinence from whatever the thing is that is taking you away from being able to actually nourish yourself, your relationships, and your in your community.
All right. Well, all of those are just such great ideas and tips for us to kind of stay mindful. I mean, I think that's really what we want to do during this time, is to be, I think someone said earlier, be present, being mindful, being aware of what's going on in our lives, how we're, again, back to my own definition of mindset, being aware of the world and what my place is in the world. How do I see myself fitting into everything that's going on in the world today? And that can certainly have great impact on us, both our health, our well-being, our mindset, even as it relates to how we manage our money, how we deal with all issues and related to life. So if we can, just for a moment, and I know that our time, we need to shift into getting some questions from our group, but Dr. Moreno, I'll say doctor because Tracy Mack said doctor and Carnella said doctor. We know that one of your areas of expertise is that you are a CPA. So can you speak to, from a wealth perspective, how are the times that we're in right now? How are people dealing with managing money, concerns about money? What are you seeing that you can speak to as it relates to how we need to continue to be mindful in terms of not just managing our health and well-being, but also our money?
Yeah, so to be clear, I am not a doctor. Dr. Moreno is a bucket list, by the way, PhD, not MD. So.
Okay, yeah, sure.
But yes, she said, Carnella says, I'm speaking doctor into the atmosphere. Excellent. I love it. So funny thing. You know, what other people are doing, I cannot say other than anecdotally, because what I do, you know, my practice is helping smart, busy women lose weight. That's what I do. Still a licensed CPA. What I mean, personally, I think what I see last year, right about March, April, when you had the stock market completely tanking, I had posted a Warren Buffett quote, and it said something along the lines of, you know, remember that from, you know, over 100-year span, it was like the stock market had gone up, you know, 50-fold or whatever it was. I don't remember the number, but it was this like exponential. I posted that, and it was interesting to see how some people responded like, oh, that's a good reminder. Thank you for that. And then others responded like, oh, well, that's nice for the wealthy, or I don't have 100 years to wait. And so it's just interesting to see. And here we are a year later, and things have, you know, skyrocketed. And so if somebody at that point went from a fear base and took everything out of the market, they lost everything, you know, whether it's for most people, retirement funds, and then didn't get the gain side. So I think the most important thing, even for me being a CPA, I'm not an investment expert. So it's important for me to have those people in my life that I rely on to help me with my wealth planning. And what am I saving now? What are my goals in the future? And how am I getting from here to there? So really, I think it's to not panic. I'm a big fan of Dave Ramsey. I've followed Dave Ramsey for years. And so I'm very much, you know, not having stupid debt and making sure I'm investing in myself and my future and staying within my means. So there are some, I think, simple principles like that to follow. But he will also say to have a financial advisor, because that's the person to talk you, you know, off the walls when you're going crazy because you're watching whatever CNN or MSNBC or Fox or whoever is talking about. Like, no, just, you know, here's what you need to do. Here's your goals. Here's the way we're working it. So have people in your life that can help to keep you balanced and sane.
Okay. And I know that we have at least one financial advisor on the call in our group today. So thank you so much for sharing in that area. Our time is just about up. We've got just another minute or so. So I would like to say, you know, we'd like to have our panelists share any closing thoughts based on our discussion, anything that you think would still be something, information that you think would be helpful to us, any closing thoughts coming out of today's discussions before we move into opening it up for questions from our attendees today. So we'll start with you, Dr. Dennis, if you have any closing thoughts.
I think just a thank you, Carlita. I really appreciated your moderation and your thoughtful comments. So thank you so much for your time.
We appreciate your being with us. Heather?
Yeah, Carlita, you're a fabulous moderator. So very well done. And really just the most important thing I think to take away is like learn how to manage your mind and get support in doing that if you need it. It's makes a world of difference. It does.
It does. Tracy?
Carlita, I think you could have been on the panel. Sometimes, you know, the moderator should be on the panel. I think you have done so. But I just want to thank you all for the opportunity and the invitation, as well as a lot of the things we're going through right now that with the stress and even having a wellness plan is make sure it's yours and not someone else's.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. And with that, Emily, we're going to open it up to any questions from our attendees.
I don't see any right off popping in, but anyone who wants to share a question, please put that into the chat area.
And to that point, as we're waiting for questions to come in, thank you, all of you who have really been posting in the chat, who've been responding as we've been going along. We haven't stopped to acknowledge all of those, but some really great points that are being shared among the attendees through the chat. So thank you all for that. Does anybody have any questions that you'd like to have addressed by one of our panelists? Anything that this is a great opportunity to avail yourself of some awesome expertise.
lots of great compliments to our panelists and
Yes.
many different things that were said that resonated with people a whole bunch.
Yeah.
I have a question. I start my health journey over and over and over again. And so there was a comment earlier about baby steps and consistency, and that's what I try to do, but I can only do it for about 3 days and then I'm back. So I do my 3 days, like, let's just start it over and over again. How would I get to day 4 and day 5 and day 6 and not start then fail, start then fail, start then fail?
So part of it, and I know this is hard to believe, but part of it is in the way you think, like, I can only last 3 days and then I fall off of it. Like, so part of it is you're telling yourself the story of, I haven't been able to do it. I don't know how I can do this, because so there's sort of the sense that you don't believe that you can. And I get it, because that's sort of been your experience. And so I think it's opening up to the possibility, and is it Shauna? Is that so, Shauna, that I can, you know, be consistent with this. I can create habits that I can do consistently, and start with something so small. So a year ago, I had a client, we started together, and her mindset was, I hate exercise. And so I did a couple of things with her. Number one, I said, could we shift that slightly and still have it be believable if you said, I'm not a fan of exercise? Right. And she said, yeah, that'll fit. So it was a little less, you know, it wasn't so extreme. And then I asked her to go for a walk with her dog for 5 minutes, 3 days a week. And that was it. That's all she was to do. And it took, you know, a couple of months of her doing that. And now she's walking hilly areas, 1.5 miles to 2 miles, 5 days a week. And she genuinely loves it. But that took months and months to get there. So it's the small steps, are genuinely small steps. And your brain's going to say something to you like, oh, well, 5 minutes is nothing. 2 minutes is nothing. You just be like, I know, but we're going to do it anyway. I know, I got you. We're going to do it anyway. And literally you could say, I'm going to do something for 1 minute today. I'm going to do something for 1 minute the next day, and just make it so small that you cannot help but do it. But every time you keep your word to yourself with that 1 minute or that 2 minute, you're building that trust that you have in yourself to keep going.
Thank you.
Okay.
Arletha, we did have a great question to come through. Did you?
Yes. Okay. Which question was that? Kathleen's question?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So the question here is, what is the best one bit of advice that each of the panelists could share to simplify and relax more? So, you know, just one bit of advice that each of the panelists might offer that can help us to simplify and relax more. Great question, Kathleen. Thank you.
Simply say the word no more often.
Say no more often. Okay.
For me, it's been leaving most social media. So I was asked to get on a couple of like Twitter and LinkedIn for work, but I like personal social media, no.
That's a huge one, I think, for so many of us. It's amazing how invasive social media has become into our lives. Tracy, any one thought from you?
Basically, taking care of you first takes care of everyone else best.
Oh.
That's all I got.
That's a mouthful right there. Okay. Was there another question, Emily? I'm sorry, I'm scrolling and trying to. Was that it?
That's all I've seen right now. If somebody submitted one and I missed it in there, feel free to submit it again, or just speak up and ask a question.
Yeah. Okay, well, listen, you guys have, to our panelists, you all have been amazing. Thank you so much. You've given us so many nuggets to hold on to. And the good news is that this was all recorded, so we can go back and listen to it again and pick up those nuggets and really be able to internalize them and apply them to our respective lives. Thanks to each of you who are our attendees today for all of the activity in the chat. You guys have just really been amazing in terms of responses and responding to one another and offering your own individual tips. So we really do appreciate that as well. With all of that being said, thank you so much for the opportunity to moderate. I've enjoyed this, and we're going to give it back over to Emily, or I guess give it back over to
Carnella.
Oh, there's a presentation of panelists' gifts. So we've asked each of our panelists to send us their mailing addresses, and we will make sure that each of you will be receiving a token of our gratitude for your all being a part of this program today. I know that I got response from, I think, one of you, but if each of you, if you haven't already, if you will email me your mailing address, then we will make sure that we get those expressions of gratitude off to you in the mail. Thank you all again. Thank you so much. So I think it's back to Carnella or Emily.
Yes.
Okay, Carnella.
Yes, this has been wonderful, wonderful. Thank you to Heather and to Tracy and Dr. Dennis. If you could definitely put your contact information in the chat so people can have it, and if they want to follow up with you. Plus, those that are listening to the replay will also have that information. That will be helpful as well. I knew when I read your bios that having all three of y'all together and Carlitha moderating, and like you said, I came real close to saying, okay, Carlitha, don't moderate, you be on the panel. And I was like, but she gonna ask some good questions that rest of us may not ask. So that's why I was like, okay. But anyway, it is a team effort, and this has been, here's my word, phenomenal. And we appreciate you. We appreciate all the questions in the chat and the comments and the tips. And I hope to our members and our guests that you have really enjoyed this as well. I'm not gonna keep this too long. I just wanna say thank you. Can we give our panelists a round of applause? Because we truly appreciate you. And don't forget, next week is the Young Entrepreneurs Kickoff. If anything, we just ask you to come and support the event, to cheer on the young people that will be on the call, and we'll just keep moving forward. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of the afternoon. Bye-bye. Thank you, Carlitha. Excellent job.
Thank you.
Can't wait to see y'all for the Connections and Conversations event.
Bye.
Bye-bye.